let's talk about Ace and Tegan. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video where today I wanted to have a little bit of a discussion about Ace and Tegan as they are reappearing in the Doctor Who Centenary special. And what kind of spurred this on was obviously recently in SFX magazine we've had two new pictures of Ace and Tegan in the Centenary special, one of which shows both of them and the other shows Dorothy McShane, aka Ace, holding her iconic baseball bat and wearing her, jacket that she wore throughout the series. Now, for those of you who perhaps aren't aware, Ace is my favourite classic companion. Season 25 is probably my favourite classic season, so I have a lot of love for Ace in particular. Tegan, obviously, I'm familiar with, but, she's not my favourite. Sorry, Tegan. But I'm seeing a lot of conflicted opinion about these two coming back. I'm seeing some people, saying that this is great, this is amazing, and I can't believe she's back, this is going to be the best thing. And I'm seeing some other people sort of express concern and or sort of disappointment over the way this is being handled. And I kind of want to dive into why that could perhaps be. Now, I think a lot of people say that the concern purely boils down to the fact that of the previous two characters that Chris Chibnall has brought back for his current era, the Chris Chibnall era being Captain Jack and Kate Stewart respectively, they kind of didn't really do a lot. They were often sort of just stood in the background, and it didn't really feel like they were huge entities in the stories. Now, I completely get why that's an issue for some people. However, I don't think it quite gets to the core of why some people feel that the reintegration of classic characters into the Chris Chibnall era feels off. But before I continue, do me a little favour and click subscribe if you're enjoying the content. We're about 12 subscribers away from 15,600 at the time I'm recording this, so feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, go follow me on Twitter if you don't already, the link to which will be in the description. I also have a PO box, which is why there's some ominous packages in the background there, which will be opened in a later video. So if you want to send anything for the next drop, feel free. But with that said, let's get into the video. So, to me, I think one of the core reasons why the return of Ace and Tegan, respectively, has been feeling a little bit off to people is because throughout the Chris Chibnall era, the reintroduction of classic characters has kind of been somewhat strange. What I mean by that is, if you take a look at the reintroduction of Sarah Jane into the new series of Doctor Who, it's made very clear that while she is definitely the same person, her life and her as a person have changed a lot. She's investigating on her own, she's a mature woman, she has had experiences since the Doctor, she's struggled to find love since, and this is only expanded upon in Sarah Jane Adventures, where we discover that she's somewhat more of a closed-off, reserved person as a result of her more dangerous lifestyle, in some ways mirroring the Doctor themselves. We also learn about her parents, she becomes a mother. There's a lot of development that goes into that character's reintroduction, and I think for most people, that's what endeared her to new viewers in the revival. And I think to me, Sarah Jane is the golden standard of how to reintroduce a classic character into the new show, keeping the spirit of the original character whilst evolving them in a natural way. Same could be said to a lesser extent for Jo Grant, who made a one-off appearance in one of the Sarah Jane Adventure episodes herself, in which she kind of became a sort of international explorer with her son, again feeling quite natural for the adventurous and happy-go-lucky Jo Grant. But as I sort of alluded to earlier, this hasn't really happened with some of the characters that the Chibnall era has reintroduced. With Kate Stewart, admittedly, there's less to analyse because, quite frankly, I don't think there was loads there to begin with. But, like I said before, she's kind of just there doing all the Kate Stewart things you'd expect her to be doing, mounting a human resistance against the Sontarans, despite her being the only person we actually see in that resistance. But I think the better case study for the way that the Chibnall era treats legacy characters would be Captain Jack Harkness. Now, just for clarity, I'm not getting involved in the whole John Barrowman thing, that's not what this is about. I'm talking squarely about the character of Captain Jack Harkness as he is portrayed within Chris Chibnall Doctor Who. Now, admittedly, a bit of a confession here, I've not seen Torchwood properly. I've seen clips, and I've seen bits and bobs, but I've not sat down and marathoned it all, but I'm thinking of doing that for a main channel video. So if you think I should, let me know in the comments below. But Captain Jack became a more complex character as time progressed. Even within the main show itself, you can kind of observe his transition from a sort of petty thief into this major, heroic figure in the universe who also had a dark past of their own, whilst also retaining a certain cheeky energy that Captain Jack was known for. With the way that Chris Chibnall characterises Captain Jack in both Fugitive of the Jejune and Revolution of the Daleks respectively, he kind of just comes across as like a caricature of the original character. He's doing all the things you would expect Captain Jack to regularly do. Oh look, there's the nanogenes. the vortex manipulator. He says he can't die, despite actually never showing that he can't die. He's doing all the quirky catchphrases and all the funny little quips that he does. And while there are a couple of nice moments between him and Yaz, he kind of just feels like Captain Jack plucked straight out of, a random episode on a base surface level. You haven't really got much of the underlayer, the subtext of the character, beyond just he's the fun adventurer guy that we always knew him as. And someone like Captain Jack always had more going on than that. And I think a lot of the concern for the return of, I think Ace and Tegan in particular, is that they are going to be treated in a similar way. Now, I can't speak for Tegan as much, because I don't really know much about how she's been treated in the expanded media and stuff. But I can say with Ace, she developed a lot post her time on the show. She became a Time Lord in one continuity, in another, she had like a motorbike, and she kind of matured over time. We also know through like the Blu-rays, she has a charitable Earth. She's become a successful businesswoman, and that's even been canonized in things like, once again, Sarah Jane Adventures. She has evolved as a person, and while I haven't listened to all of it, I have listened to some of At Childhood's End, which is Sophie Aldred's own novel, where she actually meets the 13th Doctor. And through that, whilst again, like with Sarah Jane, it's similar to the original character, there's still elements of them progressing as people. And I think what's so stark about the appearances of Ace within the promotional material for the Centenary is that it does just kind of feel like they've plucked Ace from season 25. And even if you just want to look at the main show and you disregard the expanded media, the difference between Ace in something like Dragonfire, her introductory story, and Ace within something like Curse of Fenric, they've grown and evolved a lot and have been tested a lot as people. And I think the concern is that that's not going to really be reflected if this is the approach. You can sort of see that in the way that she's even dressed. She's wearing the same jacket, the same baseball bat, and whilst for us fans that's super cool and hits on a certain nostalgic nerve, realistically, given that Sophie Aldred's real age, I believe, is in her 50s or 60s, a 50 to 60-year-old woman isn't going to be wearing the same costumes or acting in the same way or having the same mannerisms as she did when she was in her teens, which is what Ace was when she was on the show. So I think it adds to that level of, it's kind of the difference between seeing a sort of an Avengers character or like a main Disney character on film, with all of their imperfections. Say, for example, Tony Stark, where you see his alcoholism, his sort of fear of obviously all his friends dying, with all the visions from Thanos and stuff, and the version of Tony Stark you see in like the Disney World parks, where it's like, yeah, all of the iconography's there, he's still a guy who flies around in a suit and says all the quippy lines, but a lot of the actual meat of the character and the development of the character is kind of foregone to make a more positive, entertaining experience. And listen, I'm not trying to say that that's for definite what they're doing. They could really explore Ace in the future and sort of develop her to the point where, she's a really different character to who she was originally, or at the very least, someone who naturally progresses from that person in remembrance to the person now. But to me, it almost seems like they're forcing the character of Ace back to where she was in the 1980s, in a similar way to how, for me at least, Captain Jack evokes more of his, past, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's almost like a surface level veneer of the past rather than an effective evolution of that character from the past, as I felt that someone like Sarah Jane more aptly represented. Again, this is just going off a couple of promo images, but I can definitely see why some people are concerned, because it does almost feel like a regression of the character in some cases, and also, obviously we haven't seen the episode yet, but it's going to be weird having like an older version of Ace saying the same teenage lingo as she did when she was like 16. I don't know about you, but the things I said a few years ago and the things I say now are almost totally different. So having like, I don't know, like a 50-year-old woman saying, Ace, Wicked, Gordon Bennett, which she probably will, because they did the same with Captain Jack, It's gonna sound a bit strange. Also, as well, in terms of Tegan specifically, she had the added thing from Russell T Davis's Farewell Sarah Jane of making Nyssa and Tegan, respectively, a couple. And people are wondering, is that going to be implemented? There's also the fact as well of, in the case of Tegan Jovanka, she did not leave the TARDIS on good terms. You go back and watch Resurrection of the Daleks, she very much left because she was finding the brutality of it, the conflict of it all too much. And the very first thing we see of Tegan in that Next Time trailer is her shooting a gun. And I think there's a lot of concern about the development not really being taken into account, and again, them kind of just being treated like Disneyland attractions where the surface level of the character is there, but none of the depth. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. Again, This is just people's, I think, concerns. Obviously, I haven't seen the episode yet. I'm not trying to, like, make a big point about the episode before it's released. But I think it's just an interesting topic to see why people are concerned. And I kind of get it to a certain degree. But let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you do, and I'll see you later.